Hello, friends. Quite often, in documentary footage, you can see turrets torn off from the hulls of destroyed tanks. Today, we will try to figure out in which cases a tank can lose its turret and how often this happens on the battlefield. In the English language, the turret blow-off phenomenon is called the jack-in-the-box effect, by analogy with a toy in which a spring-loaded figure suddenly jumps out of a box. Just as suddenly, the turret of a stricken tank shoots up into the air. Naturally, the most common cause is the explosion of the ammunition stowage, which is arranged differently in various tanks. For example, in German tanks it was most often located in the side sponsons, while in the Soviet T-34 it was placed on the floor of the hull. If an armor-piercing or shape-charge projectile managed to penetrate the armor at the location of the ammunition rack, fragments, or the cumulative jet could easily cause the detonation of high-explosive shells. At that moment, excessive pressure arose inside the tank, seeking an escape along the path of least resistance. And in well-protected and relatively airtight vehicles, this weak point was the turret ring. Thus, the blast wave successfully tore the turret off and hurled it into the air. The probability of the jack-in-the-box effect could be reduced in two ways: by minimizing the number of high-explosive shells carried in the ammunition load, or by fighting with open hatches. In the second case, the blast wave escaped through the hatches. This, of course, did little to ensure crew survival, but it slightly increased their chances. By the way, in modern tanks, designers use special blow-off panels in ammunition compartments. Their idea is that the outer wall is made weaker than the inner ones, so the blast wave is redirected outward, reducing the risks for the crew. It is noteworthy that British Matilda II and Valentine tanks, armed with a 2-pounder gun, did not have high-explosive shells in their ammunition load, which is why turret blow-offs in these tanks were extremely rare. An interesting solution to reduce the risk of ammunition detonation was found by American designers. The so-called wet stowage was widely used on Sherman tanks. It consisted of boxes with double walls and individual cells for each round, with the cavity between them filled with water mixed with ethylene glycol. If the ammunition stowage was damaged, the liquid spilled out and extinguished the smoldering propellant, thereby preventing an explosion. After World War II, wet stowage was used extremely rarely, since shape-charge projectiles, which became widespread, could easily detonate the ammunition even when it was submerged in water. We have discussed how to reduce the risk of a turret being blown off a tank. Now let's figure out how easy it actually was to detonate a conventional tank ammunition rack. In reality, blowing up the ammunition was not that simple, especially considering that tanks were most often facing the enemy with their frontal armor, where the thickness was at its maximum. Therefore, to successfully hit the ammunition stowage, it was first necessary to approach the enemy vehicle from the side or the rear, and only then deliver an aimed shot. So, how else can a tank's turret be torn off, besides an ammunition explosion? A direct hit by a powerful artillery shell can also, with a high degree of probability, rip a turret off a tank. During World War II, such cases were not uncommon, especially after a tank was hit by a large-caliber shell fired from self-propelled artillery guns. And what ways of tearing a turret off a tank do you know? Write about it in the comments. Thank you for your attention. See you again on the channel.